In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your Razer Naga to do debate work. So the Razer Naga is an MMO mouse. There's a bunch of other companies that make similar things. What you're looking for is you're looking for all these buttons on the side here, because you can program those to do the verbatim functions, and then it's much faster than having to try and click the keys with the keyboard, which not only do you have to often hunt and peck to find them, but you have to move your hands around. It seems like an insignificant thing, but trust me, it's so good that I won't even do debate work if I don't have my mouse, just because I know it's going to take so much longer, and it's going to be so frustrating. Here you can see the picture of mine that pops up with this green top. This one is like 6 years old, but I got it from like a tech deals site called Woot. So usually these mice can be pretty expensive, like $50 to $80 on Amazon, but you can get them on sale refurbished for like $20 to $30. And the older models are totally fine for debate. Like the only thing that changes is like they get more accurate in the DPI, which I guess matters if you're pointing and clicking really fast, but it doesn't really matter for debate work. So whenever we're going to set up a profile for this, the first thing we're going to do is name it, because the shortcut keys aren't the same for everything. So like even if Microsoft Word, the shortcut keys you use when you do debate work in verbatim are different than sort of baseline Microsoft Word shortcut keys. So if you needed to do like a 5-paragraph essay and set up the margins and whatnot, you can make a new profile that all the buttons will do that for you as well, and you would want that to be different from your debate profile. But furthermore, I'm going to show you that we're going to use most of the keys. So if I was you, I would have two debate profiles. I would have one for cutting cards that does, like paste, underline, highlight, all that kind of stuff. And then I would have a different one for in a debate that did like speech functions like tilde, open new document. You can make an auto save button, whatever you want. In this one, we're just going to talk about card cutting. So I'm going to call this profile card cutting. Now, right now we're on the side view. We're looking at the side of the mouse, which is where the majority of the buttons are, but we're going to start on top view. Okay, so 1 and 2, these are the only buttons that you probably use in your regular day-to-day life. Okay, those are left and right. If you usually use a Mac, right-click on a PC brings up a window, like a menu. Let's see if it'll, nope, it won't do it on anything that's in my recording view. So those two buttons you generally don't want to mess with. Number 3, scroll quick. So the scroll wheel, up and down on a website you're probably familiar with. In Windows PCs, and I don't know if this exists in a Mac, if you click that wheel, you can then scroll by moving the mouse up and down, which is like a pretty repetitive and useless feature. So I reprogrammed the scroll click to be backspace. Okay, so the way you would do that is you click on it. Now it says the default key is scroll click. Now we don't want it to be the default key. We want it to be a different keyboard function. So we're going to rebind it to be backspace. Okay, and then we're going to save. So basically, why have I done this? Well, if you think about where your two hands sit on the computer, which hand, or on the keyboard rather, which hand do you delete things with? It's your right hand, because delete and backspace are in the same spot on the keyboard. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to eliminate any time we would have to move our hand from the mouse to the keyboard, because that's inefficient. So we need a key to delete somewhere in case we make a mistake or we copy and paste too much, whatever it is. And so I found that scroll wheel is the best. Those two little buttons below it, you could, do those as well, but my fingers are kind of big, and so for me to use those, I have to physically reposition my hand. And since I don't use the scroll wheel click for anything, it was just an easy choice for me to pick that one. If you have more things that you want to program on this, you can, but that's basically the only thing that I've changed on that. When we go back to side view, so the buttons on the side are numbered 1 through 12, and initially what they do is they just press that number. So like in a lot of video games, your abilities are bound to the number keys. So instead of having to use your left hand to click all the numbers, they're just put on the mouse for you here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did there. We're going to rebind all of these keys. You can do this in kind of any organizational fashion that you want. The way I try to do it is I think about frequency, okay? Because for me, 1, 2, and 3 are the easiest buttons to hit with my thumb. When I hold the mouse just sort of naturally when I place my hand on it, that's where the kind of point of my thumb ends up is on 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6 are not inconvenient at all. I can easily move my thumb to get that. But 7, 8, 9, we're starting to get inconvenient. And 10, 11, 12, I have to physically shift my hand. Like I don't have the flexibility to bend my thumb all the way down to do that. So those buttons are harder to press, so you don't want to be doing things all the time with those buttons. Okay, so what's the thing that I do the most when I'm cutting cards? Well, obviously, in order to cut a card, you have to copy and paste it into Word, but you're only going to do that once. The thing you do most of the time when you're cutting cards is you underline or you remove underlining. Okay, so the most common thing we're going to put as 1. So that's currently the default key, but we want to change that to a keyboard function. Okay, so you want to get the underline function, and let's say you're using verbatim, so that's F9, and then you just save. And now it shows you here that that's the key that you're using is F9 instead of something else. Okay, then every card probably also has to have a tag, so I made the second most common thing, or I thought the second most common thing that I would always use is the tag, so that's F7. So we did that. Now the third one, since I followed it up with the tag, every card's going to have a citation as well, so I changed that to the keyboard function. Excuse me, which in the citation for verbatim, that's F8, so that's saved. So that's my top row. Okay, so underline I'm using a lot. Tag I'm not using as much as underline. I'm probably only using it maybe once on a card, but tag is also your like analytic formatting, and so that's one of the reasons that bumped it up. And then citation, while also only used once in a card, looks the same as the tag format. So if you want to have text that is not showing up in the document map, you're going to use that. So those are kind of the three most common ones, I think. Number four, this one I think the kind of like next most common things that I'm going to be doing is copy and pasting and formatting the text. So for number four, we're going to give this a keyboard function again. And the shortcut key for copy is Control C, so we just save it like that. Now for paste, we could do Control V, which is the paste, but there is a function in verbatim to paste the text that eliminates the formatting for you, so that saves you a step. That's F2, so we saved F2 there. Now 6, there's a couple of different things that you can do with 6. So one of the things that I do in verbatim that is becoming less and less popular is eliminating all the gaps in the text or hard returns. So that's a keyboard function. So you can use something to get rid of that, or you can use something to small size the text, whatever you want. I think those functions in verbatim are like Control R and Control 8, but they're programmed to my mouse, so I don't really remember anymore. But those are the things that I use the most, so that I would put on 6. If you don't use those things, though, then I would say 6 should be highlighting. And so highlighting in verbatim is F11. So if you leave the paragraph integrity, then you can ignore all the things that I just said for 6, and then you probably want to put highlighting on that. I keep the paragraph integrity, so I have those things like Control R, Control 8, those kind of things bound to 6, and then I have highlighting on 7. But the one thing that I wanted to show you about that is that if you have like a bunch of keys, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make a macro. Okay, so this is how you assign a macro in there, but you can also record a macro, and a macro is just a combination of keys that you record to program at the same time. Okay, so let's say I wanted to make a new macro for formatting text. Okay, so what I would do is you would hit record, and then you would hit your keys in some combination. So it would be like Control R, Control 8, etc., and then it would do them all. Okay, so let's make a new macro. We're going to name this macro clean text formatting. Okay, now we're going to record it. So what I want to do is I'd want to paste, which is Control V. Okay, then I'd want to format it, which is Control R, and then I'd want to small size it, which is Control 8. Okay, then after I did all those things, I would hit stop. Now it physically recorded the delay in which it took me to cut those keys. So from one key to the next, it was like 0.468 milliseconds or whatever. So you can delete that if you want, and it'll go slightly faster, especially if when you're recording the macro, you're kind of careful and it takes you a couple of seconds. It will literally take the macro a couple of seconds to run when you do it. So if that's the case, obviously you want to fix that. So after you've recorded a macro, then you can go back to the side view and change that and say, okay, we want to make this a macro, and then it'll give you a list of macro, and says clean text formatting is the only one we have, and it limits the amount of text you can put there. I do know how to spell formatting, trust me. Or if you've read my blog post, don't trust me. So that's kind of what I do there. Then 7 would be highlighting. 8 through 12, these are ones that I use really infrequently. Okay, so things that you could put on 8 through 12, you could put the other levels of block organization. So you could put like header, hat, pocket, all of those things you could put on things like that. You could also do things like make your own shortcut keys to do something if you have other styles. So like if you have a style that helps you eliminate analytics from the speech doc, those could be things that you put there. But things that I actually maybe use the most is on 12 I have the like clear text formatting command. So like if I copy and paste something and it's messed up or whatever, I can easily just hit 12. And that's an inconvenient button, but it's not one that I'm using a lot, so it's kind of good to have there. A couple of things about Razer Synapse. So as you can see here, if this is linked to an email account, this cloud thing is not great. Okay, so if you like switch to a new computer or you get a new mouse or something, theoretically you shouldn't have to reprogram this, but I find myself reprogramming it like pretty frequently. So I would say that I do generally like the Razer mice, but the Razer software leaves a little something to be desired there.